Hello, Julia.
Hello, Edith.
How are you?
I'm well.
Good.
It's a busy time, but I'm very well. And I'm not very happy with the news I hear from Israel, with everything which is going there.
Yes, we are in war. And you promised to us the scenery of the sea in the next meeting.
It was impossible to go out of Athens, too much work. So I have a green curtain.
Okay. So let's go straight into work. Yes, we are in exploring reality 27. Today is May 16, 2021. It's 136 day. It's the 136th day of this year. And we have a question from Receptor 30. And the question says, what do we do about the need and the call to update the human model as a species? Because it is obvious that we need badly that updating. Beautiful. A very profound question. And you know, I found out, will confirm now, that the word apocalypse derives from the Greek word meaning to uncover or to reveal.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, but we in the Western world, we understand apocalypse as the end of times. Interesting.
It's like discovery, all the same in Greek.
Yeah. When Receptor 30 thinks discovery, the rest of the world thinks the end of time. Interesting.
Yes.
Now,
and Apocalypse, it was written in Greek also, which is interesting. John Apocalypse in the Bible. Right. It was written in Greek, which is very strange too.
I agree. So now if we do this one with technical language, then we would start by the fact that it's exploration reality 27. Because 27 is the Z letter in the Spanish alphabet, the last letter. And also the telephone code of South Africa.
Edith, it is also the omega, the last letter in the ancient Greek alphabet.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah.
But again, when you see the last letter, you say apocalypsa to meaning to reveal. Yes, and the others see the end.
Correct. It's a possibility.
Now, now we would take this 27 and we could consider the actual explosion in 972, which is from the future, 27 going into 9, its purpose. And then we would add up 27 and 972 and find out it is 999. The actualization in the present of the purpose of the past with the purpose of the future. But we are not going to go into the technical explanation because then we lose everybody and stay in the synthetic abstraction, which is cold and not accessible. Yes, so let's start in a different way. Actually, this is exactly what launched me into a long search. I had 7 years ago, 8 years ago, a scholarship. I had some time to think about life, and I identified 4 major gravities. Gravity in the sense that it cannot be escaped. This is a term borrowed from the field of physics. And I remember it provoked a lot of opposition when I introduced it to scholars from the academia. I have been asked more than once why I use an unacceptable term and difficult to understand. Why don't I settle for the word paradigm that everyone understands? There have been even far-reaching reactions claiming that I have no right to use the term from the field of physics because I'm not a physicist.
Wow.
But I use it, yes, in self-reference because it describes best that sense of we are trapped. We are in a stop situation. We grow old in body, but stay childish in psychology. We might grow sophisticated in technology, but have less and less human abilities. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the claim that fragmentation is the root of global culture. This was the leading motif in the teachings of Jiddu Krishnamurti. And Krishnamurti repeatedly proved to his listeners that we are imprisoned within a separating out and a separating perception and never stop separating the components of the world until the natural connection between things crumbles, breaks down. And we are separated from the environment, from each other, and even from our inner voice. So I found 4 categories that stand on their own, but are also intertwined. The material, the force, the identity, and the faith. These 4 gravities make up a dominant paradigm in the global village culture. And I called it the survival paradigm. They make a standard mental program through which each person feels, thinks, and acts. So standard that we do not stop at all to look at it. It's the sapiens processor. It is taken for granted and we believe we have no ability to change it. In time, we stop seeing it. We identify with it and it runs us. It is our blindness. It operates us. So let's start by the first one. The material, which is also the economic gravity, stems from the perception that humanity lives in a world in which physical and other resources are limited. And the number of human beings is growing. And therefore, there is less and less for each of us on the planet. But we know that this is not an absolute fact, rather the result of a system of distribution of resources, a system of excessive consumption in society, power structures that want to leave the state of poverty as it is for control. We know that without the seeds being engineered, as an example, we each could live from 1 mango seed for a lifetime. We know this and are unable to change it. Therefore, the word gravity describes it well. And at the level of mental programming, the essence of this gravity is I have, therefore I exist. I'm dialoguing with Descartes. The economic expression is in increased and sometimes morbid consumption, and is the disconnection of money printing from the dependence on goods, on gold, in the exploitation and abuse conduct towards nature, and so on. And that's why the word paradigm, with all due respect, is a little distant. Yes, it's like stays in the air. And the word gravity includes also the body. One can feel the heaviness of a foot that is incapable of marching towards a more intelligent organization of the material world. The second gravity, the gravity of power, power in the sense of control, stems from the perception that humanity lives in a world where everyone wants to control others. At the level of mental programming, its essence is I control, therefore I exist. Everyone seeks power for themselves, to use it to control others, or at least to buy security that others will not be able to control them. Even when moves start differently, they eventually resolve in that direction. The ruler will do anything to stay in power, will lie, deceive, enact laws, change laws enacted. George Orwell's Animal Farm. Change involves struggle, struggle involves violence, violence involves further violence. The power structure nourishes itself by the energy of those controlled. The ruler learns the rhetoric language necessary to put the public to sleep, because if they wake up, they will reveal the truth about his actions. And there was a French philosopher, Michel Foucault, did a very good job in describing this. Now, the third gravity is the identity gravity, and it stems out of our ignorance and misunderstanding of the essence of man and the purpose of life. And therefore, our need to compare ourselves to others in order to define ourselves. At the level of mental programming, its essence is I compare, therefore I exist. The only way to know who I am is with an outside feedback, and that makes us very vulnerable to this feedback. Moreover, this gravity is based on the assumption that others can know about me what I can't. And a person defines himself with the help of his job, his family, his nationality, his political opinions. And it is not acceptable to define yourself differently. Phenomena such as anarchism, nonconformism, and the search for uniqueness also exist within the paradigm of comparison to others. It is like inferiority and superiority complexes that are actually the same. In both, I'm comparing myself to others and measure who controls who. Jiddu Krishnamurti used to say, throughout our lives, from childhood, from our first day at school to our death, we get used to comparing ourselves to others. But when I compare myself to another, I actually destroy myself. And in Facebook, there was a post traveling written by a philosophy student. I think, I take a selfie, I post it, I get a like, and then I exist. So this was the identity gravity. And the fourth one is the belief, the face gravity. And it's like a collective identity that gives security. And its essence at the level of mind programming is I belong, therefore I exist. Faith serves as a common glue for different people. Through it, they connect and become a collective. And the collective provides the individual with the security that they are okay. So it reduces a little bit from the identity gravity. And the collective also provides the individual with a power through which they can control things that they could not control on their own, and therefore reducing a little bit from the force gravity. And this collective will also take care of me if I lack, and this, I mean, if I need something. So this is also reducing a little bit the material gravity. Martin Buber, a Jewish philosopher, called the collectivity a cover, as it is put on an individual next to another and make them march together like a herd, in which the importance of the individual is very little in the light of the collective's achievements. And Krishnamurti called the definition of the religious, tribal, geographical, or national collective an act of violence, actually, since it separates men through faith, tradition, or party from his basic humanity and his belonging to the entire species. I've seen in the course of my life so many we and they situations in order to gain power, situations that resulted from a person's avoidance of being themselves. It amazes me time and time again that two groups can be in a violent confrontation whilst the individuals in them feel basic empathy for each other. And William Shakespeare described this very well in his play, Romeo and Juliet. This gravity can undergo refinement. Yeah, for example, when arguing, a person might say, me as an attorney, or me as a humanist, or me as a believer. And here, in a small, disguised way, they move into their collective identity and like distance themselves from the dialogue. The collective gives the individual protection from what he interprets as a threat, and at the same time also serves as a formalin for self-preservation and isolation from reality. A stop situation. Now, no one is to blame for creating this paradigm, and it's for gravities. All human beings who have lived so far have created it together in one way or another. And I see no point in engaging in the search of whom to blame. My goal is to engage in getting out of it. To get out of it, we must first describe and acknowledge the gravities, and then decide that we do not want to be captive them in them. And at the same time, look for an alternative paradigm, a bigger one, a larger one. Now, the global convergent logic is such. And it leads, as I understand it, to the update of the human model. And all what we speak about is actually towards the receipt of the actualizations of the model. With understanding and consciousness, this will be gradual. And without understanding and consciousness, it will be brutal. More like an extinction. As an example, where on earth do you find public telephones? You don't. They are out of date. So what is out of date disappears. And it's a daily job, a day, D-A-Y. It's the model of the slow receptor, the model D4 of the slow receptor 1 in the y-axis, 26. And here again, it's the model of 1 plus 26, which is 27. It's a daily job, a daily journey, a daily construction of each daily space. Now, I believe now it is much more accessible to understand the 4 errors of creation that we derive at night. And why do we do it? Because these circuitries are out of date. And the solar system needs to know about it and needs our mature input, reporting about it. Reporting, we've done that phase. We even overdid it. Not necessary. We don't need it any longer. We are ready to move on. It is not a prayer and it is not a hope. It is a position gained by maturity. It's like the day your child tells you, I'm ready to give the pacifier away. Which is like saying, I take on myself to generate peace in myself from now onwards. You know, the other day, we are in exploring reality. The other day, we were speaking about the low birth rate in developed countries and even the voluntary abstaining to reproduce.
Yes.
Now, what is this telling us? Because there is something in the species that knows change is due. And yes, it is a commitment that you take when you see that not taking it leaves you out of date. One day you make this election, which later turns into a set of decisions and then create a new condition. The other day I heard the founder of Dubai, Sheikh Rashid, was asked about the future of his country. And he replied, my grandfather rode a camel. My father rode a camel and I ride a Mercedes. My son rides a Land Rover and my grandson is going to ride a Land Rover. But my great-grandson is going to have to ride a camel again. So they asked him, how can this be? And he said, hard times create strong men. Strong men create easy times. Easy times create weak men. And weak men create difficult times. So we are in a difficult time. And it always starts with some pioneers. And I thank you for this question, because Receptor 30 is a great searcher and discoverer into human purpose and alignment. And the challenge of today, the difficulty of today, is actually good news to awaken and start to receive the updating of the model as a species. And you will tell me if this helps.
Absolutely. It's a good approach for the updating of today. And this question of the updating of the model will come more and more as we approach what they say, the end of an era, if not time. And I'm grateful to this approach, which opened up more questions.
Great. So thank you for this engagement, and we'll see each other in the next, yes?
Yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have peace in Israel.
Thank you.